Morning. Happy Saturday, folks. Doing another side eye show. Sorry if I'm a little froggy. Maybe I'm dehydrated from the colon spelunking that I had earlier this week. But I think there's a trend. I don't know if it's been going on for a while. I'm a middle-aged guy, so sometimes I'm late to the party on a lot of this stuff where they kind of announce what they're doing. Um, the fit, so today's beverage, Kirkland's signature decaf. I can't drink the fully octane stuff because at my advancing years, it gives me the fear. Uh, Spiced up with some Hawaj, something like that. It's a spice. Anyway, the fit, cheap camp shirt, novelty hat, cheap camp shirt. Yeah, okay, so that's all taken care of. I don't think that's going to become a thing. Um, I just wanted to advertise what a basic beige Betty it is. I am when it comes to warm breakfast beverages. So today's gonna be a little bit different. Probably get into a couple side rants on this, but this is something I've been thinking about since I saw the first movie, Dune Part One, and especially since I went and saw Dune Part Two, which I saw about I don't know a month ago. I saw it right when it came out. Conservative takes on Dune have been weird. In fact, they've made me wonder if they've even watched the movie. So I'm going to be going over Ben Shapiro's review of it. He's quite glowing. He's got nothing but praise for Dune. So we're going to play this, and then I'm going to try to tackle it.
Video sponsored by PDS Deck.
And maybe get demonetized. I don't know. I don't know if I'm covering his stuff. I don't know if I'll get struck or not. JL says, "Careful, Shapiro will cause you to side eye your eyes right out of your head." That's true. That's true. The other thing too, since I don't know how long he's going to be with us, but JL is a fellow movie nerd, probably seen more movies than I have, is definitely better versed in probably better versed in sci-fi and horror than I am. If he's got any, I'd be interested to hear any of your takes on this, because, or especially if I get something wrong, let me know if I'm getting something wrong. Floyd FB is here. Good morning, Floyd. And give a shout out to everybody else that's here. Spooky is here. JC Nut, Caboose. Clive Gordon is here. Pinward, second best Bob. Who's the best Bob? Wait, Ben Shapiro has a thing for praise? No. I don't think that's what is that how I said it? No. He has nothing but praise for Dune Part Two. I don't know if he knows praise I am or not. Maybe they do. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to get into this. This is his review. The thing that I've noticed about this since it's popped out, I mean, most people have been pretty favorable of Dune, Part One and Part Two. Part One, for those of going back in the Wayback Machine, came out. It did come out in theaters. It got nominated for a ton of Academy Awards. It won a few of them, most of the technical ones. But it was sort of a weird. It was during the pandemic, so it was mostly. I think most people viewed it on Max. They viewed it streaming. But this one came out and it had a huge box office opening, and yeah, I went and saw it in IMAX. It is a deafening film. See it on the biggest screen that you can, if you're so inclined. If you're not, sandworms and desert wars aren't your thing. Yeah, don't watch it. But we're gonna get into this because there's some conservatives out there that are saying, like, finally they're doing a Sigma male hero, or finally we get away from the Mary Sues of the Disney universe. Or I don't know what they're talking about. They clearly don't understand Dune. So we're just gonna watch this and see what pearls Ben has to drop. Jails. After Shapiro ranted about the Barbie movie for 45 minutes and finished it by setting Barbie dolls on fire on a grill. Yeah, you really don't need to say anymore after that. That's holy shit. That's good. I forgot he did that. I saw a screen grab of that. What is that dork doing, burning Barbie dolls on a grill? The movie is okay. I like Barbie. I thought it was a good movie. Even a little, even inspired a little tears. Maybe I didn't cry. All right. I'm a real man. I've only cried at the end of 2 movies, and Schindler's List was both of them. Sorry. Um, okay, so here we go. Let's get into this. Let's see here. Let me shrink myself down and give you guys all the real estate. Okay, let's go. Ben Shapiro reviews Dune Part Two.
Okay, let's begin with the fact that Dune 1 and Dune 2, which encompasses the whole of the original Frank Herbert Dune.
Yeah, Part One and Part. That's what Part One and Part Two mean.
These two movies constitute the single greatest science fiction epic movie achievement of all time. It looks
Maybe. Maybe.
absolutely phenomenal. The acting is top notch. The score is great. It has probably the best.
I could have done without some of the music motifs. It's Hans Zimmer. You get what you get. If anything from Dune doesn't age well, it's going to be Hans Zimmer's score. Fight me on that. I don't like his stuff.
Visual effects I've ever seen on film, because you don't sense the CGI. Normally, when you have this much CGI, you really sense it a lot. Here, you really do not sense the CGI. You're on multiple planets throughout Dune 2.
Mostly you're on Arrakis. You do get shots like this where they're at, I'm blanking on the name of the Harkonnen homeworld. The fight that happens, it was shot in ultraviolet or whatever, the cameras that they shot it on. So it's just this stark black and white. That is something else. I mean, especially if you see that on a large screen, it just kind of sears into your eyeballs. That's the most memorable part of the movie, and the movie's memorable.
And they all have different color schemes, different color palettes, and different looks, and it's really pretty phenomenal. So let's start from the beginning.
Second, I've cried at episodes of Buffy. To be fair, there are some tear-jerking moments in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Don't hate me, all right? Yes, I liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I've watched it at least once. Rich, you weren't crying. Jay was crying. Yeah. The weird thing about sitting in Schindler's List, I remember going to see it at the theater with a girlfriend. Not a great date movie, but back when it came out, and I was actually kind of worried that I wouldn't cry. Like, what if I make it through this entire movie? It heard in the news, just there was this footage of people leaving the theater just broken down. That last bit at the end where Liam Neeson breaks down and starts like wondering what he could do more. That got me. Liam Neeson can always like give me squirts of tears. I love that big guy. Okay. So he's going to get into the recap a little bit. I should have mentioned at the beginning, this goes without saying, spoilers aplenty, not only from Ben, but also from me. If you haven't seen the movies, I mean, obviously at this point, most people, if you want a recap of Dune, the book's been out since what, 64, 69, something like that. Everybody knows the ending for it for the most part. So this is one of those movies where it's like, do I need to tell you that there's spoilers coming? Everybody that's even remotely interested in Dune can figure out not only how this ends, but also how the 5 books after this kind of wrap up, and the additional ones written by his son, Brian Herbert. So, yeah, spoilers aplenty, but it's Dune. I mean, it's practically like, public commons kind of property at this point.
Spoiler alert, there are going to be lots of spoilers. So, Dune Part 1 ended with Paul Atreides heading off into the desert. The Harkonnens have killed his father. He and his mom, who is a member of the Bene Gesserit, they end up going off into the desert.
And something of a badass herself. Lady Jessica is probably my favorite character in it, even though she's just straight up evil. I mean, most of the good guys that people think are good guys are not good guys. That they are not good. Jail says, no shame in weeping openly and deeply at some episodes of Buffy. Yeah. The only thing, I'm not a musical fan. That musical episode when she comes back, whew, that got me.
Desert to accompany the Fremen. And this is all the predicate to Timothée Chalamet's Paul Atreides becoming the prophet foretold by both Bene Gesserit lore and, as it turns out, the lore created for the Fremen by the Bene Gesserit. So in the...
Yeah, it's not prophecy, it's a plan. So the idea behind this, if you're familiar with the story, there's a prophecy of the one from the outer world will come and do blah 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 blah. It's their plan. So the Bene Gesserit are a coven of space witches and warlocks, mostly witches, who have their idea, generations long plan, is to selectively breed a super being into existence whose mind will be capable of leading humanity into the future, of improving the human race. And they have multiple candidates for this. Paul Atreides is not just one of them. And so, but they are all kind of in this selective breeding kind of thing. There's other ones out there. The bald dude, Austin Butler's character, Fade Ralpha, is also a candidate for Kwisatz Haderach. Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's really easy if you build a super being to be a prophet, and then you predict the prophet. It works great. So it's more of a marketing campaign.
Fremen lore, there's supposed to be this figure called the Lisan al-Gaib. And the Lisan al-Gaib is supposed to be a figure who is going to make the planet bloom again, apparently sometime in the distant past. It actually was a blooming paradise, and now it's all just a desert planet. In the Bene Gesserit lore, there's something called the Queen.
Wait,
Russia has been at this. That's
why did I
the
do that?
basic.
Jefferson doesn't check his alerts. I do check my alerts. What am I missing? I'm trying to keep these. Spooky said he had to pee. It's not shameful for me to cry at Buffy. I think I got it. Spooky said I saw the old film version of Dune. If you're the '80s one, the one done by David Lynch, yeah, that was the one that I. So yeah, a little background on that. I when I saw that movie, I never read the book, but I saw that movie as a kid multiple times. Really liked it. My mom hated it. She was a huge Dune fan, loved the book, read it multiple times, hated that movie, hated the changes they made. And so she gave me and my brother all the spoilers. She told us how they changed things, what things meant. We got into the lore, deep dive on Dune stuff. I was really happy to see this new movie come out because I think it's more true to the message that Frank Herbert was trying to do. If you just watch the David Lynch one, it just sort of plays it straight. It kind of has the same problem that the book does. You walk away from it, oh, Paul's a hero, and these are the good guys, Harkonnens are the bad guys. It's a very basic story. You are not really meant in the end to root for Paul Atreides. This is going to be a thing that conservatives are going to miss. Old Fade Rotha, best Fade Rotha. Old Fade Rotha was played by Sting, pop star and head of the police. Sting, yeah. Rebecca Ferguson. All I'm going to say, yeah, she's kind of a force to be reckoned with in this movie, and she generally is. She's just kind of tough in almost anything that she's been in.
Religious plot line here. So when we start movie 2, Paul Atreides is with the Fremen. It's unclear whether he and his mom are going to be accepted by the Fremen, but the movie actually opens in a different place, which is really smart. You see the same sort of thing in the Lord of the Rings trilogy by Return of the King. By Return of the King, the movie opens with this sort of backstory about Smeagol, and the idea is to set you in the universe again. Well, the same thing happens here. Here, you have Florence Pugh's Princess Irulan, who is reading from her diary, explaining what just happened in the last movie.
Which, if you read the book, excerpts of her book, of her histories and stuff are peppered in there in between chapters.
For those who missed
or rather, the headings of chapters.
It. So the idea was going to be that the Emperor was afraid of the Atreides family, and so he gave the ability to the Harkonnen family to kill off all of the Atreides. But and they
got one deny Spooky. I'm not watching it if Sting isn't in it. That rules out a lot of movies, though. Spooky. So, is he saying the fictional prophecies in Dune are as valid as fictional prophecies in the Bible? No, he's not going to do that.
Missed Lady Jessica, and they missed Paul Atreides, and now Paul Atreides is running around and making trouble for the Harkonnen family, and by proxy for the Emperor. We'll get to more on this in just 1 second. First, if you're struggling with collections, medical bills, credit cards, personal loans, debt offers, going to Lush balances on one with collection. E.S. Shapiro, half of the movie, maybe the first third of the movie, is dedicated to Paul becoming Fremen, to being.
Yeah. So the one thing that the movie does change, though, plot wise. So the movie, the first part, Paul's family, they get Arrakis, they settle in, they get ambushed, they get attacked. He and his mom are on the run. They end up in the desert. This one starts out with them in the desert with the Fremen. Maybe will the Fremen or won't they take them in? Blah 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 blah. They do. The thing that Villeneuve changed in the movie is the time frame. So Lady Jessica is pregnant, same as the book. In the book, though, they're out in the desert for at least 2 years. Paul and Chani, played by Zendaya here, they actually have a kid together. They pair up. They have a kid. The Lady Jessica gives birth to Alia, however you pronounce it, the witch girl. And she's toddling along, but before they topple the Harkonnens, so they're out there for 2 years. The movie speeds this up; it compacts it, and Villeneuve decides to do a really interesting thing with magic space baby Aaliyah talking to her mom as a fetus, because she is what the Bene Gesserit called a preborn. She was gestating in her mom when her mom drank some concentrated worm goo, the water of life or whatever, and that awakened Bene Gesserit powers in her and the memories of all of the Bene Gesserits who came before her. It's trippy. Anyway, methinks Herbert was a little into ayahuasca, but
accepted as a Fremen, to learning the ways of the Fremen and stances with wolves. He's becoming fully engaged in the Fremen culture, everything from how to properly sandwalk to how to ride a sandworm. He's not a Mary Sue, right? He
absolutely is a Mary Sue.
Trained in actual combat by the top commanders in his civilization, and then he goes and he learns combat from the
and fought them to a draw at the tender age of 15. He's trained in medicine by that doctor Yui, who's very talented. He's trained in some of the mental meanderings of the Mentats by Thuvir, or whatever his name is. He was also supposed to be one of the smartest and most gifted Mentats in the universe, and combat trained by Duncan Idaho and Gurney Hallett, two of the best fighters and tacticians in the known universe. And at the tender age of 15, he is excelling and exceeding their expectations in all of these fields. On top of that, he is a male Bene Gesserit with the voice and other stuff that's coming online. He is absolutely overpowered. Absolutely. He's a Mary Sue. Ben just doesn't get this.
The Fremen also. But also, he makes not stupid decisions. So he gets to the end of the film, and he's in love with Shani, but he doesn't stay with Shani. He understands that his only shot at being Kwisatz Haderach is to marry the daughter of the Emperor. Paul actually understands the strategy, and he understands that his political ambitions are going to have to come before Shani. Okay, so
the entire Fremen people, he effectively uses them in the most callous way possible, which is what the end of Dune Part Two hammers into your eyes. It's the reason they made the changes to Johnny's character. Already sounded bad.
They get taken in. The Fremen decide that Lady Jessica is going to become the Reverend Mother of their tribe, which
they make her a Reverend Mother for the Fremen.
Really helps a lot, since it allows her to spread the propaganda that her son is in fact the long-awaited one. Meanwhile, Paul Atreides is really split internally as to whether he should take up the mantle of Kwisatz Haderach or whether he should basically just fight alongside the Fremen.
I don't know why Ben Shapiro pronounces it two different ways. He says Kwisatz Haderach or Haderach, and I don't know, maybe he just reads whatever's in front of him, Ron Burgundy style.
And the reason for this is because he's been having all these visions, and he sees that if he becomes the leader, if he becomes the Kwisatz Haderach, or if he becomes the Lisan al-Gaib, that he is going to cause untold suffering. There's one performance in the movie that the movie really relies on in a heavy way, and that is Fade Rautha. Fade Rautha is the Harkonnen.
I don't think that they do. Austin Butler is not in it that much.
Nephew, who is supposed to be the big baddie in this movie. So the second...
Not really. He's a candidate for Kwisatz Haderach, which makes him sort of I don't know what you'd call it, like a fill-in, as far as the Bene Gesserit go. Like, as long as they can control them, they don't care who is the Kwisatz Haderach, as long as they got one online ready to go. So he's just, kind of, out there. They can use him, if Paul fails. But he's not really the main bad guy. The main bad guy is Paul Atreides. Ben kind of misses this. If you're talking about their nemesis in it, it's just the Harkonnen family, and the Emperor, really, because the Emperor has kind of maneuvered the Atreides family into this no-win situation and kind of put them at odds with the Harkonnen. But yeah, the bad guy of the story is Paul Atreides.
Second part of the film is the introduction of the big baddie, and then the third part of the film is the culmination of the battle. I only have a couple of problems in terms of the film. Christopher Walken as the Emperor is weird and takes you out of it. It's like, oh, hey, I'm the Emperor. Like, what are you?
No, it's not. I don't know what his problem. I don't know. This just tells me what a superficial ninny Ben Shapiro is. Why would seeing him at like as soon as he pops up here, the first all he thinks is cowbell. Like suspension of disbelief, Ben. It's necessary to enjoy film.
What are you doing here? We couldn't find like anyone else old in Hollywood? Like literally no one? Aside from that, the only other problem with the film is that when you finally get to the final battle, it's so unbelievably easy for Paul Atreides and his forces to just wipe out the Emperor and all of the Harkonnen forces. You wonder why they didn't do it earlier. And this is actually projected earlier on in the film. You see Paul, who's spending an awful lot of time with the Fremen, attacking various spice machines. And I just kept thinking to myself, the attacking weaponry is so much better than the defending weaponry.
I don't know what this take is. They nearly die here. Those Thopter things can basically, and they just show this multiple times, essentially fires a fully automatic shotgun. It is devastating. It nearly wipes out the entire group in this scene alone. I don't know what he's talking about. Like, it's like he was watching a different movie, or maybe he stood up to have a pee at here. Michael says, for someone who started trying to get into Hollywood and bombed out, Shabebo has the worst ability to grasp the meanings in popular art. It's wild. Yeah. It's really, it's almost like I mean, if anything, I would have thought he would have made it given his ability to grasp these kind of big narrative trends, and threads. It's like, you should write for Yellowstone. Yeah, that's right. Don't like Yellowstone. That review is coming soon. Whenever I can work up the energy for it. Why am I suddenly imagining that Ben sees his own face on Leto 2? Before or after he becomes a worm god? I can totally see Ben rocking that look. Turn into a worm, Ben. Literally.
That I don't even understand why this war is a competition. So the ease with which the last battle is fought makes it somewhat anticlimactic. And so you're wondering, how did the Harkonnens take over this entire planet? You know, put aside that particular qualm, the movie looks spectacular.
Because they weren't fighting a unified Fremen front. They weren't even aware of it. They weren't aware of the Fremen that lived in the South, which I think is something a little bit modified for the movie. So they kind of showed up in the Fremen where Arrakeen is, the city, and kind of where the bulk of the harvesting is going on. That's all kind of set up to be like, oh, okay, this is all the Fremen that there are. There's a whole area of the planet chock full of radical Fremen who, that's the group. They make a big deal out of this in the movie. The Lady Jessica goes there to unite them. Like, was Ben paying attention at all? The reason it was easy for them to rise up and wipe out the Harkonnen forces is because the Harkonnen used to be there, packed up stuff and left, came back as an invading force, were getting reestablished in the city, and then get attacked by all of the Fremen on the planet Dune. Yeah, they're going to wipe them out. They did. They took them out with relative ease. He's not imagining things there, and it's not a story glitch. That was the key to their success. It's the reason why Paul and his mom wrestle with the idea of doubling down on the Bene Gesserit propaganda about his role, because they know that they can weaponize that and use that to manipulate these people to become holy warriors in his own little crusade. And he actually struggles with this a bit. In the end, he just decides, I'm not struggling with it, I'm embracing it. And boy howdy.
Now, because they're trying to play up the conflict within Paul Atreides about whether to become this prophetic figure or not, that is turned into a broader conversation about whether religion is itself a myth, or whether religion is a manipulative tool, or whether
it's a manipulative tool. It's pretty explicit in the movie that this propaganda was used on these people to pave the way for this candidate for Bene Gesserit super being. It is a plot device for the story and also for the Bene Gesserit order itself. They're not like, oh, is religion potentially manipulative? No, it definitely is, and that's the point.
Religion is a reality. Okay, other political things, there's one political thing that they don't even know that they're doing, which this happens a lot to Denis Villeneuve. His movies turn out to be shockingly pro-life. In this movie,
Here we go. His name is Villeneuve, not Villanueva. He's Canadian. I mean, it's a French name, Villeneuve. Um,
because Lady Jessica is pregnant. Lady Jessica is talking to the fetus the entire movie.
yeah, so it's a pro-life movie. The only thing that the reason it's a pro-life movie is because she's talking to a magic space witch gestating in her body. So yes, haunted space witch fetus equals pro-life message. Take that, woke Hollywood.
show the baby in utero. Like, that is not a cluster of cells. That is an actual character in the film.
Who is referred to as the abomination by the Bene Gesserit order. She's considered an abomination. They want her dead. She should not have happened.
In any case, everything is being set up.
Which is interesting because is religion a problem in this movie? Well, when this religion is pro-abortion, I don't know, Ben. You tell me if you're okay with their faith tradition.
For part 3, and apparently there's going to be now like a 2 to 3 year delay between this movie and the next movie. So it's very much like Lord of the Rings. They're going to wait to see how this one does. It's going to make all the money. The best thing about Denis Villeneuve or Christopher Nolan.
Villeneuve. Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't like Christopher Nolan's movies. Most of them I don't like. But not saying that he's a bad director. I just don't like his stuff. I think Villeneuve is a better director.
The best working directors today is that they put on the screen.
Villeneuve definitely has been for a long time. Now he's a known commodity since this, and maybe played. Well, really since Sicario. I think people kind of like, opened their ears and were like, oh wait, who is this guy? Where'd he come from? He'd been doing stuff all along. And his movies are fucking great. Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman. Watch that crime thriller. Really good movie. Take a look at that movie. And Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal. Absolutely trippy. One of the best endings I've ever seen in any movie. It's great stuff. JL says, "Wow, he really missed what Herbert was selling." Yeah, completely missed. I don't know what it is with these guys watching. They're just so excited to see this kind of like white guy hero in the desert lead a a violent revolution that they're just kind of missing out on the central message that Herbert was trying to. Herbert's idea was, be careful following people like this; they'll get you killed. Exactly. Just wait till Ben learns about Leto too. Exactly. If there's going to be another movie on this, this is the key thing. Herbert wrote the other Dune books basically because he was a little bit disturbed at the fact that the reception to the book, people missed the point. They really thought that he'd played it straight, that Paul is a good guy. He's like, no. And so in the next book, Paul biffs it hard. He gives up on his role as becoming, it's called the Golden Path, which is what he as a Kwisatz Haderach is supposed to do. He didn't want to do it. He leaves it on his kids. He has two kids, twins, and the son, Paul, Leto too. He ends up kind of taking on the role, and he's the one that ends up becoming kind of the God Emperor of Dune. He merges with worms and becomes a worm human hybrid that lives for thousands of years. Yeah. No. Not sure how they're going to do that in the movie. I would love to see it. I think it'd be. I mean, if you thought, space fetus, space witch fetus was weird, wait till you get worm god. Ben has to miss the point that every messiah is a false prophet. No great hero leader is coming to save us. There's reasons for that. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Don't forget, Alia is also a possible Kwisatz Haderach. That's true. Yeah.
All the money. So this film cost about $190 million to make, and every dollar of it is on the screen. And this movie demands to be
not the catering, Ben. Those caterers work hard, and I heard that they were fed well.
Seen in IMAX. You need the rumbling of the ships. You need the big sounds. You need the deafening sound of.
The one thing going for this, Villeneuve's movies have great sound design, and that's not a mistake. I think that's just like a thing for him. Sound design in his movies is top notch. Him and Jonathan Glazer, I think, are probably the two best directors for that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that because Glazer's zone of interest was up for sound design. Although the sound in that movie is incredible. It's like the star of the film. But other Glazer movies, watch Sexy Beast or Birth, sound design is impeccable. It's really a key part. It's one of those things that's over. It's really missing, I think, from some movies. They'll just kind of crank it up, but his stuff is Villeneuve's stuff is both loud and subtle. If you want an example of where that quality changes, watch Sicario, the one that he directed, then watch the follow up, The Day of the Soldado, which is a stupid movie, and listen to the sound in those two. The second one is trash in terms of sound. It's like a TV show. Sicario has great sound design. Anyway, I'll stop gushing about that.
Of the thopters. You need like all of the elements of the film. As a piece of world building,
Sure.
it's the best world building that I've seen since Lord of the Rings. The acting is universally good. I had a lot of critiques of Timothée Chalamet in Dune 1. They were alleviated somewhat in this. Again, I think that the biggest problem with Timothée Chalamet is he's just very skinny. I mean, it's weird to say that, but if he's supposed to be this kind of prophetic, fiery figure, then him being...
He's 15. He's supposed to be 15 years old. He's going to be a tad skinny. Hit the gym, Timothée.
Being this incredible fighter and weighing maybe 92 pounds soaking wet.
Right, but he's fast.
Is sort of a strange thing.
No, it's not.
But does he play it well? Yeah, I think he upped his game for Dune Part 2. Overall, 5 out of 5 stars. Really good movie. Really interesting movie. And again, if they don't end up making a Part 3, it will live on its own.
If they make a Part 3, it's going to break Ben's heart. There's a real problem with this entire take on this, and that he's blocking this out. All of them are. It's the end. The end of the movie. Big spoiler here, folks. The big change from the book. Paul kills the Baron, which he didn't in the book, but he does in the movie. And then he takes over. He offers to marry the emperor's daughter, and he's going to take the throne. And they basically concede to him. And then the Landsrat, which is like the council of ruling families, they're in orbit. They've got warships in orbit. They show up, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on down there?" They do not recognize his claim to the imperial throne. This is a change from the books. In the books, they conditionally do that because they don't want to interrupt spice flow, but eventually they're gonna have issues with Paul's hostile takeover. But in the movie, they skip past that and they're like, nope, we don't rely on that. Paul immediately pivots and is like, hey, Fremen, show them to paradise, which they're all just like, yeah. So he takes a group of people for whom he has led them in a fight to get their home world back. And what do? They get on spaceships and go to the stars on a killing spree in his name. And Chani sees this and quickly bounces like, nope, I'm out. The last part of the movie is her returning to the desert, waiting to jump on a ride on a worm to get the hell out of Dodge. She's the hero of the film, and she's used there to illustrate the central theme of the movie, that Paul and Jessica are conniving assholes. They're bad guys. They used the Fremen people and their cause and turned it into a holy war to gain power for themselves. So that's the movie. Conservative values, folks. But it's a shockingly pro-life movie if you stop and think about Lady Jessica taking counsel from her magic space witch baby. Unbelievable, these guys. Unbelievable. Has Ben watched Starship Troopers? Yeah, but he had to watch it with the captions on, probably. There's no way. Maybe there is. So many people miss the point of Starship Troopers. Most people miss the point of a lot of Paul Verhoeven's movies. I love Verhoeven, and Starship Troopers is a really tough one for people to get around. Why so early, Jefferson? I don't know. I was just awake and decided to do this. I'm trying to do these early in the morning so I don't conflict with anybody else. But the right misinterpreting religious concepts. No. Daniel says, I saw it in IMAX twice, including a sneak peek the weekend before release. Loudest movie I've ever seen. It shook the room of the IMAX theater that I was in. It was shaking the chairs. I thought it was going to break a speaker. It is deafeningly. I mean, definitely don't go there if you've got a problem with loud noises or anything like that, sensory issues. Don't go see that in an IMAX. It will blow you right out of the chair. Nice Predators reference there. Thank you. But I'm fast. Um, why does Ben always sound coked out? To me, when I heard that he was a failed screenwriter, he had gone to Hollywood and he was going to be a screenwriter out there. The cocaine thing just fit. Now it really doesn't, because I think their studios are in Tennessee, down in Nashville. So he doesn't strike me as a bourbon guy. Um, Infrared, that's right. I don't know why this reminded me. They were shot in infrared cameras. The fight scene that's in black and white is in infrared. It looks crazy. Let's see. I met Denise Richards once. She said she had fun making Starship Troopers. That's interesting that she'd say that, because I've heard that Verhoeven can be kind of tough to work with. But at the same time, I think he's usually good with his actresses, which is good because he usually has his actresses do things that are difficult. Of course, Jessica's evil. She's Bene Gesserit, exactly, and so's the kid. Paul is himself a little Bene Gesserit warlock to be. So yeah. All right, let's
as a fulsome film experience.
a fulsome film experience. It's fulsome, all right. Yeah, you'll be walking out shaking your head. I'm not saying that because the movie's bad or anything. I'm just saying you'll be shaking your head because you're wondering if those cells in your ears are permanently dead or they'll be back. Okay, I guess that's it. So yeah, it doesn't touch on the ending, doesn't deal with the fact that there's a reason that Villeneuve made those changes to Chani's characters so that the audience knows who to kind of root for. You want to root for Chani. If you're going to be on the side of justice, the side of right, you would go with Chani. Don't hitch your wagon to the Atreides train. Am I crossing a lot of metaphors there? I don't care. It's early. Yeah, yeah. So another guy took a stab at this. We're going to take a look at this one next, I think. Let's remove that. Let's see here. Stop the screen. I don't know if this guy is actually a conservative, but his take on it is like a conservative's take. So I'm just going to treat him like that, just to do it. It took me a while to find this one again. I didn't include the link to this one. I wasn't sure if I was going to actually do this one, but why am I still talking and not sharing the screen? I should just share the screen instead of explaining it. Boop. Okay. This is from Jesse Grant. Dune Part Two destroys modern Hollywood. His review. It doesn't. It's such a part of modern Hollywood that it is surprising to no one. There was somebody else's take on, this is the kind of movie. I think it says this is the kind of movie that Hollywood hates. I'm like, yeah, they hated it so much they paid Denis Villeneuve $400 million to make a 2-part epic out of it. Right? They hate this stuff. They will hate the sequel. They definitely will. Children of Dune or Dune Messiah, whichever one. It's probably going to be kind of a mix of both if he does another one to kind of wrap things up to show what a failure Paul Atreides is. People will not like that movie. It will be just like how conservatives reacted to The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions.
So I just got out the cinema from watching Dune Part 2, and I think I just witnessed the best blockbuster I've ever seen personally in a cinema. And there are many
The best one was the Matrix movies. I mean, arguably.
people comparing it to Lord of the Rings and Empire Strikes Back, and while I was too young to watch those movies in the cinema personally, I can definitely see why it's being compared to those great movies, because
unfairly, I think, in a way. I mean, they're both great achievements, but I think there was more, just in terms of the lift. I think the Lord of the Rings was a bigger lift than Dune.
This film was downright excellent. However, I must say we should wait for it to stand the test of time before comparing it to such great cinematic masterpieces. But let's just say I won't be surprised if in 15 years' time, people look back on Dune Part 2 as one of the greatest, if not the greatest blockbuster ever made. And Dune Part 2 really did just save modern Hollywood, because I think I speak for most movie fans when I say that modern blockbusters have been lackluster to say the least.
You gotta fly.
No.
Black girl magic. Okay.
I no longer go by the name Astrid. I'm now known.
But this
He knows that was supposed to be corny, right? I mean, people have problems with what's his face, Taika Waititi's style and his direction. That was supposed to be cringy, glib, and corny. That's kind of his gimmick. So using that as an example of, I just don't understand the tone of these movies. Like, okay, don't use that one. The interesting thing about this is that they never show Winter Soldier, the Captain America one, the one that is one of the best action films made in the last 30 years. I mean, hands down, it is one of the best action films ever made. It's easily the best, probably, of this century. They never really talk about that. Oh, okay, I guess it's okay. But that sort of blows up their narrative. The first things that they'll point to will be like the Marvels, Ant-Man, or Thor, which it's like, okay, maybe don't. If you're looking at just the really the broadest ones with the goofiest premises, but maybe don't paint it with that big a brush. Fabio says, "Good afternoon. Good to see you, Fabio. Just joined in. Sorry to disrupt the video. Oh, nothing to disrupt. But I wanted to ask if you already talked about XXXILD. What does that mean? XXILD? I'm not sure what you mean there, Fabio. Explain yourself, sir. If you're worried about spoilers, I have told people, Fabio, that spoilers aplenty. All cards on the table with this one. So
this movie, from the performances to the cinematography to the run.
Okay, yeah, Mad Max Fury Road is the best modern action film. Fight me. No, I won't fight you. You're right. That probably is the number one spot. But Winter Soldier is in that top 5, top 10 best action films. It is one of the best action films made in the last 20, 30 years. It's one of the top. But yeah, I forgot about that. Fury Road definitely is a good action film, if not the best action film of this modern age.
Lighting to the set design was absolutely perfect in every way possible, and they all worked together in a harmony that really served this movie, and nothing really detracted from it. And what I personally like the most about this movie,
except for the Hans Zimmer, the thing that Zimmer always has in his score is that lady singing, right? Which is kind of a gimmick at this point, and something of a joke. Like when you pop that motif in there, that detracted from it for me. And it's weird because a movie that kind of stands out with a lot of cool sound design. The dude that is like the hype man for the Sardaukar soldiers, and he's talking to them. He's like chanting at them in like a Tuvian Mongolian throat singing kind of thing. Is absolutely chilling. As the coolest sound. Like if they had incorporated that guy's voice into the soundtrack, yeah. I mean, I think that would become the new motif. If you wanted to, if you're doing epic sound and music, make sure you get that Mongolian throat singer guy in there. He's a badass.
Movie is that the protagonist's character arc is the exact opposite of what modern Hollywood likes to do. And in a way, what they did with Paul Atreides in this film is basically everything that modern Hollywood seems to hate, but more on that later, as first let's start with a quick summary. So without spoiling the
better than Commando. You know what? You guys are gonna make me fight. Like, no, nothing's better than Commando. But Commando stands apart. It's its own film, really. Why do they all sound like they don't make movies like they did back in my day? Which is funny because some of the movies they saw young were already then decade. Exactly. This guy's just admitted, like, oh man, they just don't make them like they used to. I was too young to watch the Lord of the Rings films in theaters. Like, okay, so what was a formula? What was a formative film for you growing up then? Like, it wasn't Commando. Okay, Exiled is a okay. Before I get started, if any of you want to get off, Exiled was an active was an active member of the community. I haven't seen her in a while. Oh, okay. Has nothing to do with the video, and I don't know how many remember her. Exiled, aka the Vic, wife of Brian and one of the old guard, passed away yesterday. Oh, well, that's tough. Yeah, I didn't know her. Also known as Vic. I've probably heard her mentioned. I've probably heard people reference her. Yeah, that's too bad. That's bad news. Um, what are you talking about? They Live has both the greatest fight scene ever recorded and an underlying message that resonates even more today, given what our society today faces. All right, fine. They Live is the greatest film ever made. Everybody's got like, well, what about Fury Road? You asshole! You're going to put Captain America Winter Soldier ahead of Fury Road? I did no such thing. And I stood corrected. As far as They Live goes, I'm going to go on and John Carpenter cannot direct action well. John Carpenter's action sequences in almost every film are awful. They are terrible, with the exception of the fight scene between Keith David and Roddy Piper in They Live. That is hilarious. If you want a great example of how much John Carpenter sucks at action films, Ghosts of Mars with Ice Cube. Fucking awful movie. Awful. And the action sequences in the Escape From movies. Terrible.
The movie, the main plot of this film is Paul Atreides rising up the ranks of the Fremen to lead them into a war against the Harkonnens. And the Fremen view Paul Atreides as a messiah of sorts and someone that's been sent to them to lead them to the Promised Land and lead them against the Harkonnens who are invading their land. And so, of course, the main
Okay, yeah, but also plot by Space Witches.
objective of the Fremen under the leadership of Paul Atreides is to protect their land and their planet from being ruled by the Harkonnen, and also to kill the Harkonnens' leader so that they lose all their power and leave them alone. And now there's a lot more to this film, such as obvious inner conflict amongst the Fremen, as some don't like the fact that their new leader in Paul Atreides isn't one of them and isn't a born Fremen, but
and is a space warlock.
Won't dive any deeper into the plot than that.
They're cool with it, though, almost universally. The one that is not, tellingly, is not cool with it eventually is Johnny.
Because it is quite intricate, and I also think that personal interpretation is a very important aspect of this movie and definitely goes a long way to making it more enjoyable. So now that you guys get the basic idea of what this story's about, let's now get into what makes this movie so damn brilliant. And first,
movies.
We have to start with the performances, because my God, did every actor in this film give the performance of their life. I think I speak for most people that have seen this movie by now, that Timothée Chalamet probably gives the best performance he's ever given, which is really saying a lot given the fact that he has been nominated for an Oscar before, but this by far is his greatest work yet. And then
is it? I don't know.
And of course, there was a great performance given by Zendaya, who really represents the heart of this movie. And in my personal opinion, she also gives the best performance she's ever given. And she has to take on a lot more responsibility in part 2 than she had in part 1. And then, of course, we have to talk about Austin Butler's performance as the villain Fade Rotha. And my God, was this so different to anything he's ever done. And he really brought so much to this movie and was the factor behind what made this movie.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure why a lot of these guys that comment on this are all about Fade Rotha. I didn't think that the character really offered that much. It did. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't get it. I mean, Austin Butler was fine. The Fade Rotha character is kind of cool in the sense that he's very creepy and he's a sadistic, sadomasochistic killer. But like he wasn't him. And if you're watching these, you'd get the impression that he's in it a lot more. He really doesn't play that big a part in it. And spoiler alert, gets dispatched quickly Goodbye, Paul.
So good. And while I won't say it was as good as Heath Ledger's Joker, it was definitely in that league of great cinematic villains. And what was possibly the most surprising performance in this movie was Dave Bautista, who gave an insane performance.
I didn't think he was in it enough. In fact, I think the guy that played the Robin, the actor from the David Lynch movie, I think has more screen time than Bautista gets in both parts combined. He's not in it that much. But I love Bautista. I think he's turned out to be a really great actor. In terms of cinematography, Being There is one of the best movies ever. I've never seen that movie. Never seen it. But I have heard the cinematography is great.
Just incredible and really had to do nuanced acting in a way that he's never done before. And I really commend someone like Dave Bautista.
He's done nuanced acting. Watch Bushwick. Pretty good movie. But he's a little bit more nuanced than that. Cutlery Duck, wasn't Dune written as an explicit colonial commentary? It kind of was, yeah.
Bautista to step up for this role and give such an intricate performance that almost seems like it could have only been given by actors with a more artistic background like Gary Oldman or a Christian Bale.
Both of whom I think are a little overrated. I like them both in different roles, but they some film bros that will wax on about how great they are will usually pick like the most obvious kind of stuff. It's always interesting to me to watch these guys kind of do this. It's like when people talk about in awe of like somebody like Joaquin Phoenix doing the Joker, and like he didn't eat, all he did was eat apples and smoke cigarettes to lose weight, and that wasn't even really part of the plan. And then he would just kind of be in that character, and it was like, look, that was more self-indulgent than anything else, that performance. But I hated Joker. I thought it was a terrible fucking movie with a goofy message. But fight me on that. For me, I think some of these people are just like, wow, I couldn't do that. That's why you're not an actor. But I don't think that somebody like Joaquin Phoenix is really trying hard to do that. I think that's the reason why he's in the business that he's in. That kind of stuff comes naturally to him. That's why it's a talent. And I don't think it was really that big a lift.
But
Bale, I always get the impression he's trying really hard with every role. Like he gives 110%. I don't think he will ever top his performance in American Psycho. Jeffers, I'll say it because they won't, because he's the personification of a Sigma Venus. Exactly. Yeah. Listening to these guys talk about him, Fade Rautha and Paul Atreides, it's like they're measuring livestock. They sound like the Bene Gesserit order. Like, ooh, which Kwisatz Haderach are you going to bet on?
Dave Bautista, the former WWE wrestler, gave an insane.
This is not a fresh take. Batista is a talent and a treasure. Move on. Yeah, this is almost insulting at this point. Like, did you guys know that Dave Bautista has charisma and skill as a performer? Yes, we did. Move on. Congratulate him, thank him. Stop acting so surprised that he's a good actor.
Insanely intricate.
The surprising thing is that out of a lot of the actors that have come out of like the UFC, WWE circuit, he is the best one. He's the best actor to come out of that group with real skill, real talent, real depth to him. And the surprising thing to me is that there aren't more people with that kind of skill set from that world. But whatever.
Grounded, emotional performance that really elevated this film. And although this movie is huge in scale and relies on massive sets and effects, the grounded nature of the performances are so important, as this film is really a character study at heart, and the main purpose of this film and what it's trying to get across completely relies on the performances of the characters, because like I said, this is all a massive character study, and not just one character study on the protagonist, but a character study on everyone in this film and society as a whole.
It's not really a character study for Baron Harkonnen. He's pretty much straight up just bad.
And remember how I mentioned that personal interpretation is important for this film? It's the interpretation of these characters that adds all the depth to this movie. And so what I think is such a great aspect of Dune Part 2 is that everyone that watches it is going to be able to take something different away and give you that great opportunity leaving the cinema to talk to your friends about the movie and really
get it all wrong. Yeah, probably. It's a great example. You can completely miss most of the main points. Oh, he's not really goofing up here too badly. Other than the Batista stuff. Batista was great Glass Onion. Yeah, he was. He's. I don't think I've seen him in anything that's been bad. How many times can I say character study in one script exactly?
really talk about different aspects and go over different things that each of you picked up, because I guarantee that each person that watches this movie will take away something else and will.
It's not that deep. I like it. I've been a fan of the Dune story since I was a little kid. I liked the David Lynch movie, as weird as it is. Always wanted to see the Jodorowsky version, which never got done, but that would have been wild. This is not that deep. It just isn't. This guy's like, I'll walk away with something different. I'm like, do we? I mean,
will have a different interpretation on each of the characters.
Why would you do that? What you a different interpretation of, okay, so let's try a Marxist criticism of Harkonnen as a good guy. He is obviously scheming, manipulative, conniving, power hungry, and cruel. I probably left out some bad traits. That'd be the only thing missing in that analysis. You want to try and say like, well, actually, the Harkonnens were misunderstood. No. And just to make sure that you don't misunderstand them, they've shot a scene in infrared cameras where Fade Rotha brutally kills a guy. Just so you know. And while his uncle is watching from the distance lustily.
As no character in this movie is perfect, which is what leads me to the writing of the movie and why it's really everything that modern Hollywood seems to hate.
Is it? Hollywood seems to adore this.
Because like so many other blockbusters, they could have changed Paul Atreides from the books into a perfect character that is just trying to fix the world around him.
And they would completely miss the point of the book. Yes. If they changed his character so he was doing the right thing, the story then collapses. He's doing the right thing in terms of like securing power for himself and his family. That's the right thing according to his family. It's the wrong thing for the Fremen. He uses them shamelessly. That's the point.
But that never makes a character interesting, and I would argue that none of our favorite...
You can have interesting characters that stand up for the right thing. That is the weirdest take I've heard from anyone. Like,
characters in movie history are perfect characters, as we need that complexity and we need that nuance in order to really find a protagonist interesting. Because Paul Atreides isn't the protagonist in this movie because he's good or because he's perfect, but rather because he's the most complex, therefore creates the better story.
He is a genetically engineered super being. I don't know how they missed this. He is super being. Did they watch the movie? What, like, oh, you know what? They made it more complex. Like in the movie, they do a better job of having him show that he is a little bit disturbed by his own visions when those start happening to him, and he is divided and conflicted about how he's going to manipulate the Fremen until he really commits to it wholeheartedly. In the books, it's a tougher take because he's not that divided about it. He knows exactly, oh yeah, I have these dreams, I have these prophetic visions. He's cool with that, and he's kind of cool with just, using these people to further his ambitions and get revenge on the Harkonnen. That's really it. The movie does a better job of making him a little bit more complicated, a little bit more complex, a little bit conflicted about it. He's a lot more disturbing in the book.
And that's being lost into...
And we gotta push here for Team Harkonnen from Cutlery Duck. Yeah, Hollywood will like things that make money. Exactly. Exactly. Uh, for he is the Kwisatz Haderach, or Hatterach, as Shapiro is known to call him. Not so much engineered as artificially selected, at least in the books. But yes, okay, yeah, a little bit of a correction. I accept that, Titan. An artificially selected super being. Super being, yeah, like, oh, if he's just an everyman, yeah, he's a 15-year-old god of war. I mean, what's not to like? He's OP as shit, guys.
Today's movie culture, where it feels like every single blockbuster thinks that the protagonist needs to be perfect, needs to be the best and most good and well-hearted character in the story.
No. Even in the examples that he's giving here of the Marvels, those characters don't represent perfection. Many of them make bad choices. They make mistakes. They come from humble origins.
But that couldn't be further from the truth, because every protagonist needs to be complex, needs to be nuanced in order for there to be.
No, they don't need to be. They don't need to be. I'm not just saying this to be contrarian. They don't have to be. It might be more interesting if they are a little bit more complex, but a simplistic protagonist that is endlessly enjoyable to watch, Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre.
Be any story at all. But what this also does is drag us more into the story, because each character acts as a puzzle for us to solve, rather than straight up telling us who they are in the first 10 minutes. And now the
And the other films that you're talking about do make this mistake. How? Most of that is just kind of in screenwriting, right? Like you want to let people know. That's kind of the hook. You introduce a protagonist, you give them something to do. Better to give them something to do rather than something to say, to illustrate their character. Are they virtuous? Are they villainous? Blah 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 blah. Are they complicated? Are they simplistic? Keep in mind, Jessica was married to Atreides for political reasons, but was meant to breed with the Harkonnen heir. Yeah, and she was supposed to produce because they can control what they conceive. She was supposed to produce a daughter, and then the daughter was going to be the next. The daughter wasn't going to be the Kwisatz Haderach, but the daughter was supposed to get married off to somebody. Yeah, and yeah, she was basically put in Leto Atreides' bed to have super being babies because she is the daughter of the Baron Harkonnen. Having Paul set their breeding program back at least a generation, according to the Reverend Mother. Yeah. Yep. And then he's a failure in the next story. So that really, really curls her toes.
next thing I loved about this movie was the cinematography and the set design, as they definitely work hand in hand, and you can't talk about one without the other, as they work together with such a great synergy that it made the movie feel more grounded and lived in, and made us feel like this world has existed for thousands of years.
That's a budget right there, baby. Protagonist is a writer's tool. Sometimes there's simply a lens through which to see things. Yeah, and to sometimes upend things. So you get the story from his perspective, and it's like, okay, we're rooting for this guy. He's the hero, and then it shifts, and the hero of the story wasn't really the protagonist. It's Chani. You see that this is the thing that these guys keep bringing. Like, oh, he's actually complicated, and he's not a Mary Sue. He's a blah blah blah. Like, he's the villain. You keep forgetting the big complication, the big part that makes him a complex main character is that he's a bad guy. And if you want evidence of that, check out Frank Herbert's interviews and writings on popular reactions to Dune.
And they really ran from the modern blockbuster idea of more and bigger is better, as they really just stuck to what was needed, and if it didn't serve a purpose to the story or the world, then it wasn't there. And what I mean by that is that there was not one single explosion that didn't serve some purpose, or not some random building or chairs or gadgets or people that didn't serve the overall story of the film. Unlike every other blockbuster, where there are so many random explosions going on that it just feels so bland and lacks any artistic expression or integrity. And so
what? the explosions that are going on in the Ant-Man movie, which I didn't think was all that good. It was okay. It's moderately diverting. Um, the explosions that are occurring is because they are at war. There's conflict going on and things get blown up. I don't remember any of these films just having a random explosion happen just to happen. I'm not sure what he's talking. I understand if you've got criticism about the MCU, any of the particular movies, that particular one, but actually level an actual criticism. Don't make up crap about, well, these movies just have random explosions just to do it, just to dilate the pupils or whatever. Like, no, they don't. They do have a story. You may not like the story. Why don't you give me an explanation about what you think is wrong with the story and why you dislike it, rather than accusing the filmmakers of doing something they didn't do? Oh, it's this great big spectacle with all these colors and all these explosions. It's an action movie. Yeah, it's going to do that. It's like, I went to see this movie called Kung Fu Killer, and it's just a bunch of people throwing punches and kicks for an hour and a half. I was offended. I walked right out.
The minimalist approach to the world building made us feel like they really understood the world and designed it really intricately rather than just throw it together in post. And so, as much as this movie is a throwback to blockbusters of the past, it's
That he was too young to watch.
also a new evolution of the blockbuster.
It's a good movie. They're both good movies. This is not some genre defining genre. I mean, defining. Yeah, it is. It is easily one of the best made sci-fi films ever. But this would not be there without Lord of the Rings. You would not have, or I would argue that the Harry Potter movies. I don't like the Harry Potter movies, but they're doing kind of the same kind of thing, multi-part, to be serialized films for pizza. They used to be unheard of 40, 50 years ago. You wouldn't do that to somebody. Empire did, and it was notorious, and beloved for it. But that ending kind of comes across like an episode of TV. Great ending, but
Because Dune Part 2 tackles layered, nuanced human and societal issues like great blockbusters of the past, like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, but it also does it with new and improved technology that helps enhance the movie and takes the modern day blockbuster to a place that we've never seen before, which is basically what Star Wars did back in its day. And now this is the next evolution that we're seeing. And I think this is definitely going to have a huge impact on the next generation of blockbusters.
so just for those of you keeping score at home, Hollywood basically resurrected and rebooted an old science fiction property, dumped hundreds of millions of dollars into its production, shilled the hell out of it, and cranked it out as a blockbuster. And this is somehow a massive game change for these guys. The reason that more of this stuff is happening now is because we have the technical capability to bring these things on screen. It's the reason that all the superhero movies are happening now. They would have happened 50, 60 years ago. We didn't have the technology to make superpowers look cool. Anything that we did with practical effects would make things like flying through the air, shooting beams out of your eyes look really stupid. Now they can kind of do it. Not to say that it doesn't sometimes look stupid, but we can do that now. This is not some game changer. Great movie, but the idea that this is outside the system, that this is bucking current trends, no, it's not.
The way that Star Wars did when that came out.
Star Wars had the appeal of being, it was its own thing. It was an original screenplay, an original concept. I mean, Lucas borrowed a lot from different science fiction, but at least it was its own. This is an established property and something of a. It was a labor of love for Villeneuve because he was a big fan of the book and wanted the film adaptation that made it, that did the story credit, and he did. He nailed it. But that's what it is. It's an adaptation of a book, and we've got the technology and the talent and the gear and stuff to put movies like this together and make them and give them the appearance of, it's larger than life and it doesn't look cheap or hokey or any of this kind of stuff. It looks great. So John says, my wife and son went to see Godzilla last night. She said it was awesome with a huge twist. Can't wait to see it tonight. I forgot that I saw it. I went and saw that last weekend. I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Okay. I kind of remember what happened now. I don't remember there being a twist. I didn't like it, but I'm picky, so it is kind of fun. Um, yeah, that's Godzilla versus Kong or Minus Zero. Minus Zero was great. That was a good movie. That was really good.
Because most modern movies have felt hindered by its modern technology and didn't feel as grounded, didn't feel as artistic, whereas this is the first.
Exactly. Original Daleks, for example. Yeah, stuff like that. Uh, yeah, Star Wars was a rip of Hidden Fortress with better SFX. Yeah, and if you've never seen Hidden Fortress, that's not a Kurosawa movie. Check it out. It's a good movie. I saw Star Wars the week it came out. Didn't consider it all that great. Trek is still superior. Oh, I'm fighting words. Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right, though. Trek is better. I I loved Star Wars as a kid. The older that I've gotten, the less interested I am in it. I much prefer Star Trek, and I've got a lot of problems with Star Trek. I'm not a huge Trek fan. Love the original, love Next Generation, love the movies, most of the movies. Some issues with some of the other series.
Big blockbuster where I feel like the modern technology has enhanced it rather than taken away from it. And hopefully this does change Hollywood for the better moving forward, because I'm sick.
It's not. This just cemented everything that Hollywood does. They Jesus Christ, they took a sci-fi concept, dumped a bunch of money into it, and it's a known commodity. They've done these movies before. There's a large following of geeks out there that want to see something like this. So yeah, this wasn't
Of so many of these big movies being thrown together in post. And so hopefully this is a new era for Hollywood and it's finally turning a corner and we're going to get better movies in the future. But what are your thoughts on Dune?
No, they're still going to crank out stinkers. It's going to happen. Thank you, Jesse. Here's Jesse Grant. If you guys want to subscribe to his insightful commentary, I don't. He's got another one here. How Dune Part Two nuked Disney Star Wars. It didn't. It doesn't have anything to do with that. We live in a world with enough content. There's room for all of this stuff. These guys like trying to do this stuff with like the Disney Star Wars movies are questionable. But these guys trying to make it like it's just tilting at windmills with this stuff. Dude, so many legendary American films are just rips of Kurosawa. Rebel Moon is nothing but a futuristic Seven Samurai. Yeah, that's not a good movie. I watched that. What a stinker! Acting in it is awful. The performance is and I like the main actress, Sophia Botella, the dancer. I think she's great. I stare stupidly at her every time she's on screen. But that movie, man, I feel so bad for everybody involved in it, especially for her because it's a starring vehicle for her. And like, oh God, crappy. Wake me up when they remake Firefly. Yeah. When they remake Firefly and they give them all MAGA hats. Sorry. If you watch it now, the libertarian leanings of Firefly are really obvious. It's a little difficult for me to watch now, especially it's somebody who watched Star Trek was like, the Federation of Planets is just a fascistic imperial project, right? Sorry, I tried to say that. I tried to sound a little bit more like Ben Shapiro when I said that. And I couldn't get it out. What's he doing here? I've got time.
In an attempt to backtrack and try from the. At this point, I think it's fair to say that Disney are a complete train wreck that can't seem to figure out how to recover and get back to the powerful, fast-moving locomotive that they once were.
We are screwed.
Hey, I don't want to hear that defeatist attitude. I want to hear you upbeat.
We are screwed.
There you go.
And Star Wars is
both great actors there. I didn't realize they were in a film together. OMG. Yeah.
Especially played a big part in their disastrous downfall, with that really being the first domino to crumble.
Yeah, I think I'm in a fan group of one for Solo. So when these were all done, my brother and I took some time, and over several weeks we watched them in order, and I wanted to see like, okay, let's reevaluate these from beginning to end. And I ended up kind of ordering because I took a lot of crap from people because I really liked The Last Jedi. plot holes and all. I thought visually it was one of the best Star Wars movies. I still think it is. I think it's better than Empire. Nobody agrees with me. That being said, I'm not a huge. It doesn't really matter to me if somebody says I hate all the Star Wars movies. Fine, I get that. But yeah, Solo is not was not the train wreck that a lot of the film bros pretend that it is. I think it's got a lot of problems. I think it's weak. I generally, and this is probably I'm curmudgeonly about movies in general, but this is might offend some people. I hate almost every film that Ron Howard has directed. I've said it. I don't like any of his movies, any of them. I think his movies are bland. Solo's not. Solo is in the top one of ones that I can kind of stomach. It's okay. It's not bad. But if anybody knows, I mean, like I didn't like Cocoon. I didn't like Far and Away. I didn't like Backdraft. Yeah, just not a fan. The subtle message in Firefly is the futility of libertarianism. Well, that is there, and that's the part that I kind of get behind. And yeah, I always saw Firefly as being more socio-anarchistic. It kind of is. I mean, it's clearly not the one guy that was involved in it with Greenwald. I think Dave Greenwald. He's a big libertarian, like capital L libertarian, no government kind of thing. So there's a lot of his stuff in there. Yeah, I've seen the universe. It is cold, brutal, and dark. The Federation is the light. Wasn't that Chiwetel Ejiofor's character from Serenity? Uh, yeah, I knew it. It was going to have Roden. You liked Last Jedi? You are dead to me. It's divisive. Yeah, there's lots about it that I don't like, and I've seen it probably 4 times. And when I watch it, it's not a great movie, but I do enjoy it. And I think some people miss some stuff in there. The big thing I really like Adam Driver and anything that he's in. So yeah. Jeff, you have an obnoxious amount of ads on this stream. They're messing around with the because now they don't let me go ad free or post them on the ends unless I manually do that. And since I do live ones, it decides to do that for me. They are messing around with their algorithm. So when I select like conservative or something like that, it seems to not always be conservative, the amount of ads they throw in there. But yeah, the more of their ad placement stuff is sort of in the background and up to them. They took a lot of that customization out for, at least as far as I know. If you film something in advance and put it on there, you can piece the ads in when you want. And I don't usually do that. So I agree. Aaron says Rogue One is probably the best modern Star Wars movie. It is. That director is a genius. That movie was great. It looks great. The only thing I didn't like about Rogue One was the soundtrack. Again, I thought that it was corny. Yeah, Solo was fun. Then I forgot everything about it by the following day. Yeah, I kind of do too. Yeah, Apollo 13. Didn't like Apollo 13. I don't. Yeah, I didn't like that either. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It might just be some kind of weird mental block. It might just be a weird problem. I don't. Well, one thing too, I don't really like space program stuff generally. Like I'm not that interested in it. Apollo 13 was well made, but I didn't enjoy it at all. Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say especially that one. The one that I really didn't like was the Western that he did with Kate Blanchett. Tommy Lee Jones is in it. God, editing is terrible. It's an awful movie. I can't remember what the name of it is. Great performance from Adam Beach as the bad guy, though. He does a great job, and there's a cameo from Val Kilmer in it. And his cameo, he's a kind of a crazy Union soldier. He's also great. Sandals, I like Last Jedi. Well, okay, there's 2 of us. There's 2 of us. None of these movies hold a candle to Spaceballs. Agreed. riffing off Maximus's line to Aurelius about Rome and Gladiator. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's what that's from. Yeah, I thought Chiwetel Ejiofor had a line similar to that in the Firefly movie in Serenity. I'm hallucinating again. Okay, let's see if this guy makes it.
Shortly followed by the MCU and pretty much everything else since then.
When I was like,
And now it's gotten so bad that they are facing multiple lawsuits, with some from actors, and also a civil rights complaint, which has now resulted in them firing certain people from the company and cancelling projects in an attempt to backtrack and try and correct the sinking ship. But what's absolutely hilarious is that the latest Hollywood blockbuster, Dune Part Two, has effortlessly succeeded in every way that Disney has failed.
I don't know if this guy knows that Disney movies are making tons of money still.
The first wave.
So is in terms of like the success, they're not getting they're getting feedback from fans and fanboys who want to see some of this stuff canceled, but it's not going to take.
Being that they have laid the blueprint for how to have characters from diverse backgrounds, yet still.
Frost Nixon. Yeah, I saw it. Didn't like it. Liked the performances in it. Did get good performances out of people, but yeah. You know what? It's time. I'm gonna take a look. Let's go to the IMDb machine and take a look. IMDb, Ron Howard. Let's see if there is. I might be just talking out of my ass. There might be. There's got to be one. Ron Howard. I don't want to see what he's produced. I don't want to see what he's acted in. I don't need to see that. Okay. We feed people Hillbilly Elegy. Oh my God, he directed that. I forgot. Holy shit. That guy ran for office too. He's a nightmare. The writer of that. Holy crap. I didn't watch that one. He did a Pavarotti movie. What? That's a documentary. Okay. He's been doing quite a few documentaries. Solo Genius. TV show. Okay, he directed an episode of that. In the Heart of the Sea. Did not like that movie. I caught that. Inferno, that horrible Dan. What's his face? The Da Vinci Code. Dan Brown. That was a terrible movie. Rush. That was okay. Rush wasn't too bad. Dumb ending. He directed Angels. Oh, he did Angels and Demons too. That was dumb. Frost Nixon. I guess it was okay. Da Vinci Code sucked. Cinderella Man could have been a lot better, but it was okay. The Missing. That's the one. The Missing. Fucking awful. Awful movie. How the Grinch Stole Christmas sucked. Beautiful Mind sucked. Ed TV sucked. Ransom sucked. Apollo 13, I hated it. I think it was pretty well made. The Paper, wanted to like it, sucked. Far and Away, stupid. Backdraft, corny and stupid. Parenthood, never saw it. Willow, I mean, when I was a little kid, I liked it, but I do not like it now. It's okay. Cocoon, corny. Splash, problematic and stupid. Night Shift, never saw it. Okay, yeah, no, I don't like his movies. Just don't. So it's probably a me problem. The Critical Drinker is a neoconservative mess. Is it me, or is this guy trying way too hard to come off like Critical Drinker? I think he is. I have not watched Critical Drinker. What's this? Let's find out. Critical Drinker. Okay. I drink and say things. Well, that's problematic. Yeah, he did one too. Okay, let's.
You know, sometimes things really do come along just when you need them most. Like that time I was out in Dundee one Sunday afternoon with my mates, sampling some fine ales, when one of them decided it would be a good idea to do shots of absinthe. This
Okay, that's a good clip.
turned out to be a faulty premise, especially after 3 or 4 rounds, and by early evening, we were all decidedly the worse for wear and contemplating the unthinkable. Bailing out.
Cinderella Man was brilliant. Crow and Giamatti fucking slayed. I mean, I like both of those acts. I think they were pretty good in it. That probably is Cinderella Man. Probably is the one, the only one that I would say that I probably like the best out of his stuff. That and then Frost Nixon probably, just because I the performances that I agreed, the performances in those movies are great. I still think a different director would have done a better job. I just think Ron Howard plays it so safe with most of his movies. It's just weird. What's this? We ain't found shit, Tuvok. Did he ever say that? I would love to see that actor say that. What the hell are we watching? Well, we started off covering Ben Shapiro's take on Dune 2, and then I kind of followed it with this other guy who's trying to become a critical drinker here, and I think people were right with that that observation. So now it's Dune Part 2, the movie we all needed for some reason. Why did we need Dune? Disney movies have consistently made less than expected / optimum profits, but they are not failing by any reasonable metric. Yeah, it's like if they're not Avengers Endgame, these guys show up and are like, well, Disney's slipping. Like, okay, they can't all be Titanic level successes. It's just not gonna, especially when you got one called Ant-Man. It's just not going to appeal that much. When does the Trolls movie trilogy analysis start? Well, soon, I hope. I think JL will probably think twice before having me like do anything where we talk about movies, because I'll end up getting into something and be like, "This movie's great," and I'll be like, "Nah, it sucked." Just be me yucking his yum for the duration. Although I think we do see eye to eye on a lot of films.
And going home early. No! Then, in our hour of need, we saw it. With our stomachs duly lined by a combination of cheap grilled meat of unknown origin, wilted salad, and dodgy chili sauce, we were back on track.
Chili sauce? I don't know. I mean, I know kebab places are big. Hell, are there more kebab places now than curry shops in England at this point? But I don't understand how you guys do them. I don't know what goes into it. If anybody here is watching from the UK and you want to educate me on it, because I love Mediterranean food. I mean, chicken shawarma, absolute favorite. But yeah.
Track and went on to have a blinding night out. And I really do mean blinding, because I'm pretty sure I lost the ability to see for several days afterwards. Oh well, that's method.
I think he needs to drink more critically. It just needs to be a little bit more discriminating about the drink. Let's see. I liked Beautiful Mind. Well, Sandals, you're wrong. You're wrong. No, it's fine. I mean, lots of people liked it. It was a popular movie. I thought it was corny. And again, it's one of those movies with it's got great actors in it. I like Russell Crowe. I love Paul Bettany. Jennifer Connelly is in it. She's awesome. I don't like Ron Howard. It's like Merlot. Paul, I'm thinking of what was that movie called? Sideways, or no, that's not it. The wine drinking one. I'm not drinking fucking Merlot.
Than all poisoning for you. Anyway, my point is that 2024 isn't giving us a whole lot to be optimistic about in the world of cinema.
Pandemic, guys. Pandemic and strikes. Multiple strikes. An actor's strike. A writer's strike. Like, I love this shit. Like, well, you know what? Yeah, there were all these kinds of things going on, but it's woke. It's the woke part of Hollywood that's really dragging the stuff down, not the substantive problems that they have with production, paying people, the union negotiations, the fact that a bunch of studio execs decided that AI was going to was going to be the greatest innovation in labor relations since the cat o' nine tails. That's about how they approach things. God damn, takes like this. Ant-Man surprised the fuck out of me. Which one? And in what way? I liked the first one. I was genuinely surprised by the first one. I thought it was pretty good. Big plot holes in it though, especially for the villain. There's a whole arc there that doesn't actually get dealt with. It's just a giant. There's a big question mark over why he's going insane. They just like took those scenes out and
being dominated by the festering dregs of the superhero genre and a series of cash grab sequels that nobody really wanted or asked for. And then along came
But people went too. So, yeah.
Dune Part 2, and just like that dodgy kebab shop from my tortured intro, it's here to save the day. Only
At least he acknowledges his intro was tortured.
this movie won't give you violent explosive diarrhea powerful enough to crack the toilet bowl. Yes, Dune Part 2 is here, and after sneaking into, an advanced screening, I'm pleased to say that it's everything I'd hoped for, plus a little extra. Yeah, there's a few little niggles here and there that I'll get into later, but for the most part, I think Denis Villeneuve delivered another visually stunning, thoughtful...
Don't you mean Denise Villeneuve?
Mature and well-crafted sci-fi movie with the kind of cast that most directors could only dream of, and provides a fitting
But Hollywood can easily afford. Here you go, Denny.
conclusion to the Dune saga. Well, for now at least.
Doesn't really conclude it. It just kind of sets up the first book. Denny does want to do the thing, the God, Dune Messiah or Children of Dune, both maybe merge them, something. That's really not going to go over well with these guys. They're going to end up like, what? Well, they made Dune woke. It's going to be great. It's going to be the exact same. I've made this prediction. It's going to be the exact same thing that happened with the film bros that were like, The Matrix was a great movie. And then you watch Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions where it actually twists that original hero's journey, and they're like, whoa, what happened? All of a sudden they had to think about the entailments and what the original messaging meant, and the all the visuals. Like, it didn't go the way you thought it went. When it was just a straight up hero's journey, they thought it was great. It's like they're going to, with the next two movies, tip that hero's narrative on its head. And they did.
Now, I absolutely don't want to spoil this one, so I'm going to keep my plot summary as brief and vague as possible. So grab your still suit, fill it up with high-grade alcohol, and let's do this.
No, don't do that. That'll just dehydrate you more. That is an inappropriate use of a still suit if I've ever heard it. Ant-Man 1, low expectations for such a minor, silly character. Paul Rudd carried that film with a surprisingly solid supporting cast. Yeah, it did. And that was kind of a nightmare production because they started out with Edgar Wright from the Cornetto trilogy, Hot Fuzz and stuff like that. And he had creative differences with it, didn't want to do it, didn't want to take some of the nods that Feige wanted. And then they handed it over to Peyton Reed. And I thought, Peyton Reed, I only know him from doing movies like Yes Man, that Jim Carrey goofy thing, and other movies like that. I thought it was going to suck. And it was surprisingly pretty good.
The movie picks up right after the events of the first film, with an exiled Paul Atreides and his mother Jessica now living amongst the nomadic Fremen. Paul wants to strike back at the Harkonnens who wiped out his entire family and deliver some good old-fashioned payback. By Jessica, who Paul risk everything to free the planet from their brutal regime, and even if he does, what will be the reason? The visuals. And believe me, they deserve to be praised. Villeneuve has always been good at turning the screen of them that IMAX was created for, and a good example. Compare this to the gaudy, cluttered, overwhelming visual diarrhea masquerading as films these days, and you begin to understand.
Sure, if you compare any movie with that Flash movie, you are going to run into issues.
And just how powerful this technology is when it's properly used. The story, as far as I can tell, is
and expensive. Not a lot of directors get the opportunity to make a movie with this kind of budget.
surprisingly faithful to the book, and while they might have condensed certain things down and cut out other stuff for the sake of runtime and narrative streamlining, I can kind of understand why for the most part. And ultimately, the main themes of religious dogma and cult of personality manipulating the masses, the corruption of power, and the dangers of blind faith are well represented on screen. Paul absolutely isn't the infallible hero that people want to believe in so badly, and the more the film progresses,
yeah, he's not.
the more you begin to see the flaws in his personality that will go on to have catastrophic consequences for the galaxy. Cast and performances are superb throughout. Timothée Chalamet's the kind of actor that I knew would be fine playing the shy, timid, boyish version of Paul in the first movie, but I wasn't convinced he'd have the gravitas to play the powerful, commanding military and religious lead.
Gotta say, Timothée Chalamet's performance in it is pretty good, but Timothée Chalamet does this thing where he yells weird. I don't know how to really describe it. When he yells, it's too much. Like he doesn't like it. It's like he goes from speaking normally, and then when he yells, it's like he's like gonna jump out of his own hide. made. It's a little bit like it's like he transforms into Nicolas Cage or something. It's a little weird for me. Other than that, that's my only note for him.
That he has to become. Luckily, though, I was completely wrong on that front. Chalamet's on top form throughout the movie, able to switch easily from pensive and regretful man pondering the dark future that lies ahead.
Yeah, The Expanse excelled at writing and portraying strong female characters without showing off or feeling like they're checking off boxes. I feel bad for a lot of creators now because if they're writing characters like that, you end up running into the situation where the execs and the marketing types are going to make a big deal out of that, which I think they make a mistake in doing that. But they like to pat themselves on the back and say, "Hey, look, we've got a diverse cast," or whatever. It's oftentimes, if it's a good script, it happens to have that. And then they end up kind of putting it front and center, and then it gives guys like this and other people this thing like, well, they wrote it that way. It was all a manipulation. They set out to write a diverse cast or cast a strong female. It's like, not necessarily. The marketing's going out there and they're running their mouths about it, and then in reaction to the marketing, people are like, oh, it's another woke piece of trash trying to engineer society again, make me okay with the lib agenda or whatever. And it's just like, that's not how that started. It's a big machine, Hollywood, and they make mistakes with their advertising all the time. Keep in mind, Dune features a diverse cast. Shock horror.
To a ruthless and vengeful messiah willing to destroy anything that stands in his path.
When he yells, it's like someone suddenly squeezing a high-pitched dog toy. It's not quite that bad. It's just really aggressive. Like, you just like, it's like Large Marge's face in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Just there's two scenes like it. He does that. He yells at he's yelling at his mom each time, the Lady Jessica. Once in a tent, they're surviving out in the desert in part one, and then again they're standing on that promontory. I think they're getting ready to go to the south, and he's talking. He's kind of having second thoughts about manipulating the Fremen, and that's not hope, I think, is the line that he delivers, and he says it just like, okay, yeah, dial it back a skosh. That's a lot. I will watch anything the Cage is performing in. I love Nicolas Cage, good and bad. If you have not seen it, there is a movie called Pig. Watch that movie. It is a great movie. He gives, I hate using the word spellbinding, but it's captivating. His performance in that is so good. You cannot stop staring at him in this performance. It's great. It's amazing. And a really, really crazy story. It's actually kind of a captivating story too. It kind of sucks you in. Slow moving, kind of slower paced, but interesting. Nicolas Cage is the worst best actor of our age. Nicolas Cage is the best worst actor of our age. Agreed, 100% to both points. Yeah. Pig, and of course Mandy. I mean, Mandy's fucking awesome. It's fucking awesome. It's kind of sad because I think it's is it why am I blanking on his name? It's from the show. Is his name John? I don't think he likes it. God, I'm blanking on his username. Anyway, let's see if he's.
And thank fuck the movie never makes him the butt of some cheap, humiliating jokes to try to ground him and make him more relatable. And he's perfectly balanced out by Austin Butler, whose star.
No, he isn't. What? Why did he's perfectly balanced out by this character who's featured in like 4 scenes. Like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? The other thing too, take this into consideration. It's one movie, part 1 and part 2. You cram them together, and when you do that, his percentage of screen time is negligent. I mean, he's a main character. He's a major character. He's a major player, but he gets dispatched at the end of it. These guys are making it up like thematically what's going on with his character in this movie is just this groundbreaking turn, and I'm like, he's a psychopath. That's pretty much it.
Rapidly rising in Hollywood, and it's easy to see why. The guy's brilliant as the sadistic.
Yeah, Johnny O hated it. Johnny O, yeah. I was kind of surprised by that. I mean, he really hates it. And there were other people in JL's chat on one of his videos. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and they were all just kind of dogpiling on Mandy. I was like, oh man, Mandy's not a Sigma penis.
sadistic and brutally efficient Fayed, brought in by his uncle to crush the rebellion on Arrakis once and for all. I'd be lying if I said I was a massive fan of Zendaya as an actor. Like, I never really understood what all the fuss was about, and I find her annoying as fuck in
I think seeing her in armor, I think just unlocked a kink. I think I don't know how to feel about
the
that.
Spider-Man movies, but to her credit, she turned in a good performance in Dune Part 1 and stayed equally strong in Part 2. Her
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Zendaya, but I'm not a huge fan of Timothée Chalamet, but I think they did well in their roles. So
version of Chani is more questioning and independent than in the books, more willing to call Paul out on his bullshit. But
yeah, she definitely is. The idea, her character is like kind of cool with him marrying the Empress too. The fact, but Chani, like as far as I know in the stories, Chani stays as like kind of side squeeze. It's kind of mirrored the way that Leto Atreides' relationship is with Lady Jessica, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's his wife. Like, no, that's his concubine. We don't actually see Leto Atreides' wife. But he didn't marry her. In fact, there's a line where he regrets not marrying her. So
the movie never tries to elevate her at the expense of him. If anything, she's actually pretty irrelevant to the central narrative.
No, she is not. She is pivotal to bringing home the Herbert's message from the book. Pivotal.
Which kind of makes me wonder why she's front and center in so much of the media coverage.
Because she's the hero. Jesus. I thought this guy was critical. What the hell?
No, the real dramatic focus is on Jessica, Paul's mother, who does what the Bene Gesserit do best, sowing conspiracies and manipulating people behind the scenes to pave the way for more visible figures to rise to power. Meanwhile, she's wrestling with personal issues of her own.
I thought JL and I were going to get into a fight about that, because I posed a question to him when we had our discussion on my channel, and I'm not a fan of Ari Aster's movie, of any of his movies. I do want to see Beau is Afraid. I've heard it's absolutely crazy. I watched Hereditary, and I was really looking forward to it. I really wanted to see it. I love Toni Collette. I think she's you can't praise her enough. She's fantastic. Some of the scary moments in that movie, I caught myself laughing at. I just did not. I mean, Gabriel Byrne's in it too. I mean, everything about that movie, its setup, its themes, its visuals, I really wanted to like it, and it didn't land for me. So, yeah, I for other people that they might be about it. But the other one that Ari Aster did, Midsummer, also just a miss for me. Leto never has a wife. Okay. I thought he had like a political marriage that gets mentioned in the book, but I wasn't sure.
Her own, and the growing realization that maybe she's created a force that she ultimately can't control. On the other hand, Florence Pugh Pugh and Christopher Walken are
Pew, pew. She's fairly minor in the first book, but critical to the second book. Yeah, I've heard that too.
both in the film, but honestly, they've got so little to do that they feel pretty superfluous for the most part. Also, it's a fucking
Well, he gets supplanted pretty quick, so yeah.
baller move to cast someone like Anya Taylor-Joy in your movie and have her appear in a 10-second cameo that exists only in a dream. I mean, I assume they've got bigger plans for her in the next movie because the ending leaves the possibility of a sequel wide open, as it should. If I had to pick out some flaws, I'd say the writing doesn't come across as quite as smart, quite as polished and refined as the first film. The Harkonnens, for example, don't seem like the calculating, ruthlessly efficient tacticians they did in Part 1. They make poor military and political decisions, fail to perceive obvious threats, and put themselves in vulnerable positions that
they were kind of maneuvered into a vulnerable position. They kind of let you know that. Let's see, Leto never married. He needed to be open for marriage to consolidate families. There's a line in the book where Jessica says to Chani that history will regard us as wives. Yeah. So you're saying it landed for you like a telephone pole? I would like to see it again. I was having a few drinks when I watched Hereditary. I don't remember much of it except that little girl doing that with her mouth.
Absolutely shouldn't. The result is that you never really get the sense that they're a difficult enemy to overcome. And as much as I love the visuals and the slow, dreamlike quality of his
okay, they're pretty. The Harkonnen are backed up by the Emperor's forces, the Sardaukar, and they're kind of creepy.
direction, there's times when Villeneuve's lack of pace can sometimes work against him. Like in one scene where the gang are told the location of a hidden arsenal of nuclear weapons to help even the odds. A different director would have just cut directly to the characters opening up the vault and recovering the bombs, but instead Villeneuve treats us to a long extended sequence of everyone looking at the spot in the mountains where the weapons are hidden, then Paul explaining all the things that he can blow up with them and agonizing over whether to use them, and then finally unlocking the vault and taking them out.
I don't remember this sequence, but okay.
It's unnecessary padding in a movie that's already pretty long, and I feel like that extra runtime could have been used to flesh out other characters like the Emperor and his daughter. Ah well, these are gripes for sure, but they're pretty minor ones, and they shouldn't detract from what's ultimately a very well-directed, mature, thoughtful, and excellently crafted sci-fi movie. The kind of film we absolutely need more of these days, and the kind I definitely recommend to any fan of the genre. Dune 2 seems destined for great things, and well, I'm here for it.
Okay, well, that wasn't terrible, but and I get the impression that Critical Drinker does seem to understand that these guys keep missing the target on this stuff. Like the emphasis, it's laid out with the ending of that second movie. That's the point of Chani's change. But whatever. Okay, with that and JL's last Sigma penis, I think I'm going to wrap this one up and get a few things done today. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Sorry I didn't cover any Darth stuff today, but there hasn't been much. I did get into a conversation with John Lee yesterday. I jumped into a Discord channel and was talking to some of the people that Pine Creek went and talked to. Some people that I knew from Clubhouse. Haiti was there, and Tom Rabbit was in there. Was chatting with them and shooting the shit. And then John Lee jumped in and decided he wanted to have a go at me, take on the spatchcock, and take me on he did. He was quite loud and aggressive and obnoxious, and he didn't really make a point. So it wasn't like a debate that we either won or lost. It was just an ill-conceived conversation. So hang on a second here. Quick clip in Discord for you, really. Let's take a look and see. Dune wind guy. I've seen that. That's pretty good. Thanks for the clip. All right. Take on the spatchcock and having no point. He was kind of, I mean, I'll admit I was having some drinks. And I was decently into some. What was I drinking yesterday? I think I was drinking a little Polish vodka. So I don't really remember much of the conversation, but it didn't really go anywhere. He just got noisy and and he kept calling me sir. Sir, you gonna answer my question, sir? I'm like, I'm not, I'm not your senator. Like, stop doing. Why are you calling me that? I'm not your boss. Taking on no point. Yeah. That's our John. It is indeed. I've only talked to him like once or twice, and I tried to make the point to him. I think he kept interrupting me. Like he got me confused with like Skylar Fiction, I think, or maybe the other way around. I can't remember. And I remember like somebody was like, yeah, John wants to have a debate with you. And I was like, really, about what? And they mentioned what it was. And we're like, we've told him that's not you, that it was either Skylar Fiction or somebody else. And I think the reaction from John, like, whatever, I'll take all of them on. I'm like, okay, you can't distinguish me from other people, but you're willing to get into a debate with me. Weird. Standard John Lee. He thinks he's smart because Matt Adams exists. Matt was in there too, I think. Matt was talking at me a little bit too. Again, it's kind of a blur because I was off the dietary restrictions, if you know what I mean, and decided to, probably, throw a little bit too much of the happy juice into me. All right. Well, with that being said, I guess I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks everybody for showing up. This is just a casual one talking about movies. That's the conservative takes on Dune 2. I wanted to cover pretty much right after I watched it, because after I watched the movie, I started, obviously my phone's listening to me. I start getting feeds from, Ben Shapiro thinks that this is the movie that will save Hollywood. And these other guys were doing the same thing. Like, we finally got a Sigma male on the screen, and I'm like, did you miss the point of the entire story? Most of them dead. So they'll get it if they do Dune Messiah. they're gonna get it, and they're not gonna like what they serve up, and then there'll be ones like this, like, well, this is how woke Hollywood is. They wokeified Dune, and we needed that to remain. That was the Sigma penis that was going to lead us, into the future. So, all right, folks. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this up and get out of here. Thank you, everybody in the live chat. It's been fun hanging out with you. Thanks for the clips. Thanks for the commentary. I'm sorry that I trashed Ron Howard. I always feel a little bit bad because I don't think I dislike Ron Howard. I just don't like his movies. If you haven't seen Dude 2, go and see it now that it's been ruined for you. All right, folks. Take care.